I'm thinking of building a house so we can live together with my parents. What? Where will we get the money to build a house? What? We can just use our savings. One day, my husband brought up the idea of multi-generational living, and I was at a loss for words. It seemed he looked down on me for this reason. As I was shocked, my husband continued, "If you can't follow what I say, the only option is divorce." "All right, then, let's get divorced." I couldn't stand his selfishness anymore. But I wasn't planning on divorcing easily. I intended to make him fully atone. With that in mind, I accepted the divorce as he wished. "It was you who orchestrated this, wasn't it?" "What are you talking about? Isn't it just desserts?" He would come to regret his past actions. And he was destined to lose everything. I am Hillary, and I work from home. I met my husband, Chris, at the company I used to work for. Strictly speaking, he was introduced by my boss. My boss was my upperclassman from my university days, and I had been close to him since my student days. "Got any plans after work?" "Not really." "There's someone I want you to meet." "Me." It was sudden, and honestly, it was annoying. I really wanted to watch the drama I had recorded at home. However, I couldn't just easily refuse after being approached by my boss. He's an interesting guy. Just for a little while. I wasn't expecting anything, but once we started talking, I found that Chris and I had similar hobbies. Moreover, I felt comfortable and at ease being myself around him. The progress from there was surprisingly smooth. "Marry me." "Ah, a proposal." "Yes, but I'm surprised it's so sudden. I want you to marry me." Chris proposed to me just 3 months into our relationship. I was so surprised that I gave a strange reply, but of course my answer was yes. "After we get married, I'd like you to quit your job and stay at home. Is that okay?" "Sure." I decided to prioritize Chris's feelings. Chris strongly wanted me to be a homemaker, but I wanted to avoid losing my income. So I asked my company to let me work from home. "You look pale." I didn't think being a housewife would be so hard. "What happened?" "I thought it would be easy just doing housework." Hearing this, Chris laughed and said, "Just go at your pace, Hillary. I'll help out where I can." "That sounds good. Thank you." Chris's words were reassuring. I'm not good at housework, and it took more effort than I thought. Yet Chris never complained and just watched over me. I felt that marrying him was not a mistake. However, not everything went smoothly. I did poorly again this time. That's too bad. But you can just try harder next time. I tried to encourage him, but Chris's face changed and he raised his voice. "Don't say it so easily." I almost retorted that he was just venting, but I managed to hold back. Chris works in sales, and it seems his results weren't going as well as expected. I had no idea that such a situation would follow. "I'm sorry. I was trying to cheer you up because you seemed down. I also spoke too harshly." "I'm sorry." He apologized, but irritation was evident on his face. In such situations, I struggle to choose the right words, and appropriate expressions don't come to mind. Moreover, I feared that saying anything might anger my husband again. A little while later. "How's work?" I took the day off because I wasn't feeling well. "Are you okay?" He seemed energetic despite saying he was feeling unwell. He had an appetite and even had a second helping of rice at breakfast. I found it strange, but I didn't think too deeply about it at that time. From that day on, whenever I said something to Chris, he took it as a complaint and started blaming me. "How are you feeling?" "Better now." "I'm going out for a walk to change my mood." "Shouldn't you rest a bit more at home?" "I'm fine. I'm just going for a walk nearby." "Really? You shouldn't push yourself too hard." Suddenly, Chris glared at me. By the time I realized it was a bad idea to say that, it was already too late. "What's wrong with you?" "You're always nagging." "I was just worried." "I'm telling you I'm fine. Instead of worrying about me, why don't you do some housework?" Understood. I was left speechless by Chris's words. The Chris I knew since our marriage had become someone I no longer recognized. Days like these went on for years. I spent every day wondering how I could get through the day without making Chris angry. I'll be home late today. What about dinner? I'll eat at home. With that, I waited for my husband to come home. It was past 11 p.m., but he still hadn't returned. I'm home. It was almost midnight. Relieved that he had returned safely, I smiled and headed to the entrance. Welcome back. Are you going to eat dinner? I already ate out. Really? Why? I heard you say this morning that you'd eat at home. Did I say that? Well, never mind. I stood frozen in place. I had prepared dinner for two and hadn't touched my food while waiting. Facing Chris, who didn't even apologize, I began to harbor doubts. Does he really love me? During these continuing days, something happened one day. This is for you, Hillary. Chris gave me a bouquet of flowers. Knowing I liked red roses, the bouquet was filled with them. For me? Why? Hey, did you forget your own birthday? What? Recently, so many things had piled up that I hadn't realized it was my birthday. I also bought cake and wine on the way back. Let's celebrate together. Thank you. I was truly happy that he celebrated my birthday like this, something I hadn't expected. I could feel Chris's love clearly. We spent some peaceful time together for the first time in a while, savoring the happiness. I wish these days could continue. Can I talk to you? I have a concern about next month's payment. What? The time I felt happy was quickly over. Although the living expenses he had been giving were sufficient until now, they had clearly decreased compared to before. I had been managing somehow, but this time it seemed impossible. I had savings, but they were for the future, and I hadn't intended to use them now. It seems like the usual amount won't be enough for next month. Not enough. Aren't you just buying unnecessary things, Hillary? I'm only buying the essentials. I'm saving wherever I can. So, you're saying you're saving and buying stuff for yourself, right? If it were the old me, I might have given up arguing at this point, but not this time. Considering we wanted children and thinking about the future, I felt it was necessary to have a proper discussion. I'm telling you no. The amount you've given me has decreased, so I've been refraining from buying things for myself these past few months. Are you saying it's my fault? Why has the money decreased? What are you using it for? I decided to say everything I was thinking at this opportunity. However, perhaps irritated by my resistance, Chris threw the smartphone he was holding at me. I instinctively protected my face with my hands. Fortunately, my face was okay, but the smartphone screen was completely shattered. If you have complaints, earn it yourself. I'm asking you because it's impossible. The worsening of this problem was due to Chris's low salary. Chris worked in sales, where incentives were significant, and his salary increased based on the number of contracts. However, if he didn't secure contracts, his salary wouldn't increase at all. That's when I decided to make a bold proposal. Then, is it okay if I go out to work? However, he did not agree with that proposal. What are you talking about? Didn't we agree that you would stay home after we got married? That's true, but your salary alone isn't enough. That might be true, but I won't allow you to go out to work. Isn't it harder to balance housework and a job? Would it be okay if I could work from home? Feeling that the situation wouldn't change unless we resolved this issue, I continued the conversation, believing that it would ultimately lead to a better outcome for both of us. However, Chris said something unexpected. It's strange that you're so eager to work. Why do you think that? I'm purely saying this for our livelihood. Worried that the conversation was heading in a wrong direction, I tried to steer it back, but it seemed my words weren't reaching him. Is there another man? The moment I heard these words, I felt our trust toward each other fading away. After all this time of enduring while being mindful of Chris's mood, if you're going to say that, then fine. I won't go out to work. Are you satisfied now? You should have said that from the beginning. At this point, my love for Chris had almost faded. He would explode in anger if things didn't go his way. This situation was even worse than dealing with a domineering husband. And then, a certain event led me to vow revenge. Chris, you will have to pay the shortfall. I can't work. All right. And Hillary, you should show more respect for me. Chris strongly wanted me to stay home for a reason. Apparently, he wanted to feel like he was supporting the family. However, he didn't realize that his status as the main breadwinner was also unstable. I really appreciate that you're working hard. Are you mocking me because my salary is low? Not at all. I live off the money you earn. If you understand that, then it's fine. But watch your mouth. The words I told Chris were sincere. But there's nothing more foolish than being forced to deal with such meaningless pride. That's why I think his work isn't going well. And then, I was further cornered by a new presence. Chris was saying recently that you're acting high and mighty. What? When called to his parents' house, I was immediately greeted with such words. If Chris hadn't talked about it, this situation wouldn't have occurred. Moreover, since he is their only son, he is very much loved by them. Therefore, they always fully support him. You should understand more that Chris is the main breadwinner. Yes. I responded non-committally while tuning them out. Then, my attitude angered them. What's with that attitude? Listen seriously to what we're saying. Your mother should teach you how to respect your husband more, shouldn't she? Really? If you say so, maybe I should do so. As they said this, it became harder to just brush them off. I felt that continuing to interact with these two would destroy my life. I thought they were kind people before we got married, but that was only because the problems had not surfaced. The fire was lit because Chris had consulted them. I apologize for interrupting, but I have another appointment, so I must leave now. This was the only way I could think of to get away from there. What's this next appointment? A housewife like you shouldn't have any appointments. His parents smirked ominously. I really do have an appointment today, so I apologize, but I must go home. With that said, I left my in-laws' house a bit forcefully. On the way home, my heart was pounding nonstop, unsettled. It was the first time I had felt such emotions. But this did not mean everything was over. Are you back? When I opened the door, there was Chris. I'm home. What are you doing? You went to my parents' place, right? Why do you know? My mother called and said you left without listening to them. I thought it was a bad situation. I knew they would talk to Chris, but at that moment I couldn't think of anything. I did listen to them. Then why did you leave in the middle of the conversation? I had an appointment. I thought it was a bit of a stretch, but Chris seemed to believe it, or at least he didn't press any further. Relieved, I stared at the ceiling. After that, Chris's intimidating attitude softened a bit, and we were able to spend some peaceful days. I feel a bit feverish, so I'm going to take a day off from work. Did you take your temperature? I just checked, and it was around 38 degrees. Are you okay? You should take some medicine. Maybe I will. Even though he had been working diligently without taking days off recently, I was concerned that the days he didn't go to work were increasing. That day, after finishing the household chores, I went to check on Chris. It was just when I was about to throw away the garbage. I thought, isn't this the medicine I gave to Chris? Chris pretended to take the medicine but actually threw it in the trash. Seeing this, I intuitively thought that his fever was a lie. Furthermore, I remembered something. He would say he was sick and skip work, but then he would go out saying he was going for a walk. At that point, I decided to try a little strategy on Chris. I'm going out to do some shopping. I might take a little longer because I want to stop by a new store. Okay, take care. His reply didn't sound like one from someone who was feeling unwell at all. It was full of energy. I pretended to go out and ambushed him from a spot where I could see the entrance. Sure enough, Chris soon appeared. I thought, where is he going? I wonder. I followed him discreetly and confirmed that he entered a casino. I immediately took out my smartphone and took photos. I realized that this was the reason he had been skipping work and going out. If he was addicted to gambling, it made sense that the monthly living expenses he provided had decreased. Then, one Saturday, Chris said something unbelievable. It was the start of an incident. I'm thinking of building a house so we can live together with my parents. What? Where will we get the money to build a house? What? We can just use our savings. I was lost for words. Was this why he had been looking down on me? As I was shocked, my husband continued, I'm the head of this household. You can't go against what I say. So, what is this man thinking? The fact that he says such things as if they were natural shows he deserves no respect. If you can't follow what I say, the only option is divorce. All right, then, let's get divorced. I could no longer endure his selfishness. But I wasn't planning on divorcing easily. I intended to make him fully atone. All right, my parents will be arriving soon though. Now, both of them are coming. We'll live together here until we build the house. Make sure to entertain them well when they arrive. Saying this, Chris started preparing to go out somewhere. I was appalled at how self-centered he could be, not staying home even though his parents were coming, but I decided to use this opportunity. I actually wanted to leave this house as soon as possible, but I thought I would announce the divorce in front of his parents. I'll make sure to entertain them well. As I saw my husband off, I couldn't help but smile. Then, I waited for his parents to arrive. Oh, where did Chris go? I heard my mother-in-law's voice from the entrance. He went out. He entrusted me to take good care of you two. I wanted to see him. Well then, please take care of our luggage. Luggage? As told, I began to carry all the luggage into the room. During this, a doubt crossed my mind. Why did we start living together in this house before building a new one? Their house is bigger and more convenient for them, so why insist on living together in this house? How long will you keep carrying luggage? I'm worried about our future life with such a slowpoke. After I finished carrying the luggage, just as I was thinking to take a rest, they called me. Bring this, go buy that, as if they were treating me like a maid. I felt it was about time, and so I told them about the divorce. I'm going to divorce Chris and leave this house. Hillary, what's gotten into you all of a sudden? What are you saying? Who will take care of this house then? It's already decided, so please do as you wish. I hurriedly organized my belongings and prepared to leave the house. Confusion was clearly visible on their faces. You can't just do whatever you want like this. That's right. Don't blame Chris if he gets angry. There's nothing to forgive. Chris told me that divorce was the only option. I'm just following that. You have a lot of nerve saying that. They spoke to me in a harsh tone, but I felt no fear. It might be none of my business, but I think it will be difficult for Chris to support your lifestyle. What do you mean all of a sudden? Please ask him for the details. His parents seemed to be shouting something, but I left without caring. I considered going back to my parents' home, but it seemed like it would take some time, so I booked a nearby hotel instead. Then I decided to make a call to someone immediately. I'm sorry to bother you on your day off. I have something I need to discuss. Do you have some time? It's been a while. How are you? What happened? It's about Chris. I told my boss everything about Chris's fake illnesses. I see. Thanks for telling me. Did you know about this? I had been a bit concerned too. According to my boss, Chris had been acting strangely at work as well. When I thought about his behavior, that made sense. I also have proof photos of Chris playing slots on the days he took off from work due to illness. I'll give them to you. Thanks. But are you okay? I'm fine. I can't stay with him any longer. so I'm getting a divorce. I see. If this gets out, he probably won't be able to stay at the company either. I left the matter to my boss and decided to enjoy some time to myself for the first time in a while. As Chris called me repeatedly, I turned off my phone. Since it was Saturday, my husband would be shocked when he goes to work on Monday. I'm a little sorry that I won't be able to see Chris's face. Then, the awaited Monday arrived. It was you who set this up, wasn't it? When I turned on my phone, there were over 100 missed calls from Chris, so I answered the phone with some anticipation. He seemed to be panicking. "What are you talking about?" "Isn't it your own doing?" I responded to Chris calmly. Then he became even angrier. This was the reaction I expected. When I got to work, I was called in and given a termination notice. No one else could have done this but you. I took a deep breath. Even if I hadn't acted, he would have been fired eventually. I had just moved things along a little sooner. Didn't the company find out what you had been doing? Why? When did it get out? Chris seemed a bit disheveled. "It doesn't concern me anymore." "What?" "If I get fired, you won't be able to live either." Chris seemed to have forgotten what he had said. I wonder if they hadn't told him. "We're getting a divorce, so it doesn't matter, does it?" Hearing this, Chris fell silent. Perhaps he had been confident that I wouldn't actually go through with the divorce. If so, he was truly a foolish person. I was completely dumbfounded. "Did you take me seriously?" "Of course I did." Who jokes about divorce? No, it was just a little joke, right? That's a harsh joke? Plus, there's no way I could live with your parents who are in debt. What? Debt? What are you talking about? It seemed they hadn't told Chris anything. I used this holiday to investigate their home. I had been curious about the reason for the cohabitation. Fortunately, their home was just a 15-minute train ride away, so I went there myself. They had moved in with us because they had actually lost their place to live. I'm sorry, but I had your parents investigated. I heard a lot from the neighbors too. They've gotten into serious debt from gambling, and it's unbelievable that they even lost their house. It was an absurd story, but both of them were dependent on gambling. They spent money on casinos and accumulated debt, eventually using their home as collateral for a loan. In the end, they had to sell the house. We ended up living together because they lost their home. You're the same with your dependence on gambling, right? You were going to casino even on the days you took off from work, weren't you? Was it that obvious? It's not something I need to hide, and I have proof too. Damn it. Where were you hiding? There's no way I'm telling you that. Chris was emotional and unable to think clearly. I decided it was time to say everything I wanted to say. Tell me. You don't want to know what happens if you don't. More importantly, don't you have something you need to tell your parents? What do I need to tell them? About your salary. Can you tell them you only make $1,500 a month? Even though you're in sales, you can't secure any contracts. I felt good about saying that to myself. Yet, Chris had been gambling with that money. You're hiding the truth. I think it's wise to tell them sooner rather than later. Shut up. I was planning to tell them eventually. There's no need to be so stubborn. I laughed, looking down on Chris. It seems the situation has completely changed. This must be the payback for how he has underestimated me all this time. Don't get so high and mighty just because you're a housewife. You're the one who's going to suffer. I still have the luxury to care about others. I'll take that as a compliment. Why is this happening to me? I don't know. All right then, I'm hanging up. With that, I ended the call. Then I decided to go get the divorce papers. Divorce was just part of my revenge. A harsher reality awaits Chris and his family. And I successfully got divorced. As expected, Chris contacted me. It's tough because I have debts. Help me out. After losing his job, he had apparently been borrowing money for living expenses. Despite his parents suffering from debts, he ended up in the same situation, which made him even more pitiful. Debts sound tough, but you just have to work hard to pay them off, right? Even though we're divorced, don't you feel a little bit like helping? Why would I? You're a stranger to me now that we're divorced. Getting all high and mighty just because we're divorced, huh? Do I need to be considerate towards a stranger? I said that and ended the call. Afterward, Chris decided to cut ties with his own parents. It seems his parents hadn't been told about Chris's income either. This caused a fight and led to them severing their relationship. It looks like a bleak future for them, and as for me, it really was tough, huh? I'm sorry for any trouble I caused you. If it's okay with you, could you come back to work? We've been looking for someone to join us in the office. Really? I would love to work again. Remote work was fine, but I wanted to show my face at the office and work there. That's great. Everyone will be delighted to have you back. Thus, I was able to start a new job and am living a fulfilling life. My savings were not taken by my ex-husband, and from now on I plan to spend my money and time for myself and enjoy life.